You've heard of two guys in a truck? This is two guys in a podcast.
Dude, that is messed up. We were driving home from my daughter's school thing last night in a rental, not a rental, my sister's car,
Hmm.
and there was a truck in front of us that was like that, almost that exact thing you said. And I said to Stephanie, my wife, those businesses exist everywhere. It's crazy. Like it's like two brothers in a moving truck,
Yep.
or two guys in a truck, or blah blah. I literally just commented on this last night, and then you just said it. You're like Google,
Well, if I am
except
Google,
without
I'm going to
the
start charging for all my in-app purchases, which
with a 30%
yeah.
bid.
So this is perfect Google. Like they sat there and said, "Wait, Apple's charging 30% for ongoing subscription services. We should do that too."
Yeah, yeah. Oh wait, they're enforcing it? Oh, could we do that?
Yeah, like actually somebody probably went, "They're not in trouble for that yet?" Oh, okay. Yeah, we're going to do that too. Like that's exactly what just happened.
So I have two theories about this. One is that Google comes off more lightly than Apple because, of course, they have less onerous terms for
Hmm.
various reasons, right? They do allow different stores, et cetera, different payments. Well, actually, different payment systems, not so much. But so I wonder if this isn't a strategy to hurt Apple, right? Because if Google had to go back to the way they were kind of doing it before they were enforcing it, it would just be the same. You know,
Hmm.
if Apple has to get rid of this, their fee structure is going to change dramatically. So it's kind of it's possible that's what it is. But I also find it interesting that like Apple has really kind of doubled down in the face of all this adversity. They're just like we're going to be stricter than ever.
Yeah.
And you see Google's kind of doing the same thing. And I wonder if there's a legal reason for that. That by pushing as hard as they can at what seems like the worst possible time,
Hmm.
that whatever compromise is met will be less onerous because they've been so strict now, maybe.
Maybe. I mean, that's an interesting theory. Anyways, but Google is like, hey, we're going to try to do that too because Apple got away with it. And if they can get away with it, we should be able to too. I wonder if they're also thinking too, like Apple's pretty far down like the legal rabbit hole at this point. They're like, if something happens to them, we're like 8 months behind. We can make a change and just try to avoid some of this.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. All they have to do is not enforce it. Like,
Hmm.
Apple loses in court, we'll pretend that happens. They Google can say, well, we'll just go back to we were just doing things the way we were doing. So it's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. So how's you're not in, are you in Asheville now or where are you?
Not yet. So we're going there today. We're in Charlotte still.
Oh, okay.
There's a little bit of technology usage that you may enjoy.
Hmm.
We weren't going to see our daughter again.
Ever?
On this
Like
trip. And
you pushed her out on the boat and she just
yeah, yeah.
drifted.
No, she slept at her dorm last night. Her roommate's coming in today.
Hmm.
She called or texted Stephanie this morning. She's like, I can't find my AirPods, And like any teenager, I mean, she kind of lives with them. So I'm thinking, man, we're gonna have to go buy AirPods now. And Stephanie's like, well, maybe she left them in the room. The room's still, because of COVID, like they don't clean the room for 24 hours, so it's still available.
Yeah.
So they were got like we can make a room, a room key for you and go check it out. And it could be in the car, right? And so then I said, hold on a second. They have like a Find My app on Apple
Yeah.
devices. I'll just check my iPad, and her AirPods were right where we are. And I said, they're either in the room or they're in the garage in the car. So Stephanie went down and found them in the room. So it was kind of a nice,
Yeah.
yeah, just a little. But
If only you could like apply some sort of sticky tag thing to anything you own
yes,
to use that app.
yes. Well, a mere few months from now, I think I will be able to do that.
Call it like a tag, maybe an air tag that completely leaks.
Maybe it'll be like a disc thing. You can pop it on the outside of the AirPod. It'll look like one of those Surface earbud things.
God. That would be the end of irony at that point where you put them on there so you can locate each individual one and Microsoft's in the background just like, really? Like that's us.
I mean, you have to assume that the
Yeah.
next gen AirPods will have this built in, right? There'll be a chip inside or something.
Yeah. So anyway, so that is fun. Couple quick things before we move on here. You did an interview with some more SMB people, correct? And
Yes, I did. Yes.
we got another clip today.
Yeah, so this should be Chad Mawson. He is the IT manager of a law firm with 60 employees, and
Okay.
he was great. Good conversation here.
Yeah, here is just one little snippet. We'll have more to share later, but here's just one little clip of something we're working on.
Using Office 365 and going with that, and really it worked well for us. It did the things we needed it to do, and it got some of the stuff off my plate and out of my server closet and put it in the cloud and made it so that it was, I think, easier to manage. I mean, I wasn't so worried about the hardware itself. Could just worry about helping people get the software up and going and make sure it works correctly.
And the whole point of this is to show that, hey, Office 365, while we often talk about, hey, hundreds of thousands of users or massive organizations, here is a very small law firm who just deployed it and it works. Like that's the idea. Nothing.
It's funny. I've heard different things consistently across the people I spoke to. Not like 100%, but like, of the 7 people, let's say, 5 or 6 would kind of tell me the same things, which I thought was really interesting. Among those things are, the importance of teams and moving to teams and how amazing that was for them, and how in most cases they never thought they would even bother with teams. And then forced to use it because of remote work and everything, they realized, like, we're going to be using this forever now. Like, even if it goes back to completely normal, we're going to be using it. But the other part has to do just kind of with the value of Microsoft 365 and just getting people set up. So whether, like in this case, they're probably sending, like, obviously law partners and lawyers are getting, laptops, some kind, whatever it is. But they setting people up with those accounts and just, you remotely administer it. They sign into the laptop. They're on board. They get access to all the documents and everything. Was one of the other key ones. And, we're still kind of at the tail end of that weird reluctance to the cloud bit, where people are like, well, I want to own my software and pay for it and everything. But I mean, just overwhelmingly, these guys told me what I sort of expected here, honestly, but in very strong terms, that the value is not just there. It's like overwhelmingly there. They do a cost analysis, and they're like, it would be dumb not to do this.
Yeah. I mean, that's it. I tend to agree.
Although it's fun having a server in the closet. We all like the server in the closet.
Yeah. Back in my IT audit days, I used to open. Oh man, we used to go to small shops.
Yeah.
And they would literally have like AS400s or whatever in the closet, like stacked up, and there'd be fans pointing everywhere. And then it'd be up to me to determine if this was like sufficient cooling. And I would always just open the door and take a deep breath and be like, I have no idea, because like they're like janitor closets, and they just put fans in there, and it's hey, look, it says it never gets above 68 degrees in here. All right, like
okay, but if this thing turns to liquid one day, I mean,
yeah. Yeah, like how redundant are those fans that are just taped to the wall? Like,
right, the clip-on fan that you buy at CVS.
I mean, you joke, but sometimes that's what. Yeah. Usually they have like one of the big metal ones that we've all seen that you buy at like Walmart for like $10. But sometimes, So.
What else is going on? You bought a car.
I did.
And you wrote about it. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah. As expected, like these things. Well, everything in the world, I think, is polarizing. Like, you're either, like, this is the absolute best thing.
Listen, I got to interject because one of these guys made a really salient point, and I think it needs to be driven home. If you would gotten the Lexus, you would have gotten the superior audio system, so I think you need to get the Lexus.
Which I will tell you, the audio system in this car is the best I've ever heard. Now, granted, my sample pool is much less than like when I talk about laptops and anything else like that.
Yes.
But like compared to like my previous car, my wife's car, and I've sat in some other pretty high end cars in my life, but it's good. It's nice.
Well,
apparently
they
hired some
to hear it above the sound of the engine. So
yeah, well there is. Yeah, that's the interesting thing is you hear everything else about the car though. Because there is no engine noise, like you hear the AC compressor, like when you're rolling at a slow speed, like you hear everything. It's just like, I'm not going to sit here and preach and say that electric cars for everybody, because they're absolutely not, at least not today.
Well, except for one thing. I have bad news for everybody who doesn't think they are. They are literally the future. So this is not a matter of, maybe you can, well, maybe if you're old enough, you can hold out. But I mean, California's already mandated no fossil fuel vehicles by 2035. So, I mean, that's how it starts.
You've got to do your research to see if it works for you, and that's what the conclusion was that came to my wife and I. Is like, hey,
you mean financially?
Well,
like in other words,
like financially, like just logistically. Like for example, I live 5 minutes from a service center and a supercharger. Not everybody does. Right. And so if you don't, if you live in a state where they can't sell them, it's going to be a much tougher sell.
So, for example, you wouldn't have gone on this road trip probably with that vehicle.
I might. I mean, we're going to drive it to Florida.
I mean, but that's the type of thing to change over time. I mean, even when my wife had a diesel vehicle, there were concerns about finding diesel. Yeah. Right. But the type of thing you're doing, that's going to become the norm. It's like the spread of Wi-Fi.
Yeah. And there's tons of chargers around. I mean, like the charging isn't so much it. Like if you live I don't know, if you live off the grid, like this is not going to be a vehicle for you. If you can't park in a garage, I don't know if this is a great choice. Like there's a lot of things that kind of need to align to make it work. For example, my car sits in our garage isn't heated, but it's connected to our house and it's insulated. So the garage never gets really below about 40 and never really above about like 85, 90. So it always sits like in a nice range that's great for a battery. I have a charger in the garage. I live 5 minutes from a service center. We just drive around the area. Like the things align to make it work for us, but that it's definitely not for everybody. But it's a fun car to drive. There's no doubt about it. So
Yeah.
anyways, there's going to be, I wrote it intentionally like as a start of a series because that's kind of what it is. Like I've never, this is,
Yeah, no, this is gonna kind of wash over you over time. I mean, there'll be observations and surprises, good and bad, and
For
whatever.
sure.
But yeah, this is a whole new world. I mean,
yeah, I mean, this is the first new vehicle I've ever owned. So there's also
Yeah,
that
right.
aspect to it. Like
Right.
so whatever. Anyways, be on the lookout for more of that stuff because as things just kind of happen, I'll just keep writing about it. That's kind of what we do, right?
Yeah, yep.
So, other fun things, if you couldn't log into Office 365 or Microsoft Teams last night, they had a very conveniently timed, pretty significant
I
outage.
got to describe this to you, by the way. It was very strange because I don't remember exactly. I guess we went into dinner with our daughter last night, and then at some point I just kind of checked in because I don't have notifications turned on for Teams on my phone, so I just kind of look at it from time to time. And I could see at the top of the messages list there were 2 new messages, and I could read the front of yours because it said something like, "What time do you want to do what we're doing now tomorrow?" or something like that. And then there was something with you and Jan, and I tapped on it, and as soon as I did, the screen went white. And then there was like a blue bar at the top, like in the notification area. And of course, Teams is kind of themed purple, so it's a completely different color. And I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. And then I went back and tried it a couple of times. They kept doing the same thing, except I didn't even have to touch anything. Like the app would come on, you'd see it for a second, and then it would just disappear. And I was like, well, I'll go back to the hotel, try it on the computer. If it works, it works. And if it doesn't, I'll just text you and we can set this up. But by the time I got back, it was fine. And then I saw the story that, yeah, there was in fact some kind of a massive outage.
Yeah, it seemed like it was initially with, or it may have completely been with the authentication layer of the platform, because that's what went down. And then I first noticed it because my phone just said, "Hey, you need to log back into Outlook." I was like, "What?" And then Teams said, "Hey, you need to sign back in." And I was like, "Uh-oh."
Yeah.
And then you go on Twitter and people are just starting to blow up. And then it was,
Really, on Twitter? That's weird.
yeah, interesting. I know, very unusual. And that it was. Interestingly, so it was out for like a full hour, like completely hosed for an hour, and then Microsoft said that they rolled something back that they thought was causing it, and that didn't fix it. And
It was the 2004 rollout at Microsoft that screwed everything up.
and then it looked like honestly, they had issues like off and on for about 5-6 hours. So
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, it was a good day for me for it to happen because
yeah, I mean, so anyways,
around.
if you're logged into a Microsoft service today, I would recommend not logging out until they
Just in case. It's a little fragile.
yeah, little temperament, I think, is the thing. And then, Paul, I see that you also proudly proclaimed on Twitter, also, because it never blows up, that the Windows era is officially over. That was
I
your
love when
fault?
people like they read a headline from a story and they're like, "Rah, rah, 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 rah." And like if you look at the blurb, it kind of explains the headline. I mean, I don't know. It's weird to me. I have to explain this to people, but it's like, on what grounds?
Yeah.
Like, how can you make such a claim? I'm not making such a claim. I'm refuting that claim. Like,
Let me read the blurb, by the way, because
Yes. Put it in perspective.
Paul's blurb on Throughout.com says, open source advocate Eric Raymond believes that Windows will evolve into an emulation layer on top of Linux. He's nuts.
Yeah, completely opposite of what most people thought I was saying.
Yeah.
I wasn't. It's like I thought I'd just pop my head out of the ground like a little mole or something and throw a grenade in the room and then take off the rest of the week. No, I figured if there was something important, I would. I had a couple hours. I'm like, I could write something.
Yep.
And, I saw that thing and I'm like, I can't ignore this. This is, And then plus I wanted to step through it. Is there some kind of a rationale? Because by the way, Eric Raymond, I think is nuts about this particular topic. But you have to understand, this guy is a luminary in the open source world. He wrote the Cathedral and the Bazaar, for crying out loud. I mean, he's, he certainly skews crazy. I mean, a lot of, unfortunately, a lot of people on the far end of that spectrum are kind of nuts. But I mean, someone you should listen to, at least see what he says and then pay
Yeah.
attention otherwise or whatever. But yeah, I kind of stepped through it and I was like, there's a lot of misinterpretations, a lot of misunderstandings, Azure right now probably does directly and indirectly contribute more revenues to Microsoft than Windows, probably. But it's pretty damn close, by the way. I mean, it's something like 33% to 26% in any given, the most recent quarter. I mean, whatever. I don't know. Azure requires a lot more investment on Microsoft's part than Windows does, and so you can make the argument
that
it's probably
clear.
right. I mean, it's probably more profitable. Anyway, so it kind of undercuts this whole argument, but
Yeah. Anyways, so Paul ruined the internet. Actually, it reminded me. So Twitter's working on a feature, and I think they're going to roll it out to everybody, where you couldn't. I know you couldn't retweet something like a news headline, or it would give you a prompt unless you actually clicked on it, which is smart.
I thought of that because I often make fun of headlines, as you know. But that's not what that won't impact me because I'm literally not sending you to the thing to read.
Yeah.
I'm not retweeting what they wrote. I'm cutting and pasting the headline. I often don't read the article. I mean, that's in my case sort of the point.
Right.
I just by the way, just as kind of a random, I'll just blast one particular publication because they make me crazy. Tom's Hardware has evolved into this site where their headlines are often about a piece of technology being mad at another piece of technology. I'll give you an example. They'll say something like, the PlayStation 5 is upset that it will never have this Xbox feature. Like, they write headlines like that. Like, what? I'm not going to link to that story. That's a stupid headline, or whatever, I'm paraphrasing it. But so, yeah, I did see that. Of course, as I would, I thought of myself, but I will be not impacted by that.
That is good. But you will be impacted by this one little trick.
Too soon.